Okay, so we are almost done with the course. I wanted to give you a few data points that I thought would give you some perspective about what a successful sequence and setup looks like that I just didn't have in my early on in my entrepreneurial and sales career. So kind of jumping into it, you really shouldn't be doing this if you're not a high ticket item, meaning if someone's not purchasing from you and it's just not an expensive purchase, meaning, like if it's a $50 purchase, then it probably doesn't make sense to be doing something like this. The rule that I sort of hear from experts in the space is that $10,000 annually is sort of the, or just total. If it's a $10,000 threshold for a sale, then it's sort of the math makes out. But you have to understand that, unless you're doing this yourself and you're just sort of trying to make some revenue, the goal a lot of times is to hire a sales team and get those people motivated, and they're motivated by money. They're salespeople, right? And so the commission rate that I hear a lot of times with salespeople is around 20 to 30% of the total sale. And so a lot of times, just from total conversions, for total contacts reach out, the math doesn't work out for making them a lot of money, which is the whole point of this, really. I mean, if you want the engine to work, if you want the sales team to work, then you have to sort of motivate them, and you have to make that math work. And so $10,000, approaching that, I mean, if you're at $7,500, a lot of times, you can make it work in some sense, right? But $10,000 seems to be the floor for that. And so just because the math works on the number of contacts reached out, which is the next point, is that when a salesperson is reaching out to monthly contacts, they're typically only able to, as a quota, reach out to around 200 to 600 contacts a month. That's sort of the upper limit, 600. Typically the minimum is 200. And so conversion rates, in sales are just not good for $10,000 purchases, right? You may find that you have some math that works at $50 purchases and they're able to just sell hundreds of them. But you're going to be sort of the anomaly and not the norm. And so, as you can see on my screen, like a meeting rate for this, these types of cadences can be, sometimes 3%, sometimes 5%, very low. And so if you're sending out to 600 people at 3%, that's 18 contacts. I mean, that's 18 meetings. And so if you're actually closing, 25 or 40% of that, that's 4 or 5 deals a month, which is not many, but if it's a high ticket item like $10,000, then it makes sense for the salesperson to continue on and be motivated, because they're going to be making, $12,000 to $15,000 off of commissions per month. And so you got to make that math work. And so jumping into some of the other stuff, so some of these cadences, reply rate 60%, 16%, total enrollments, meeting rates. If we jump into some of these cadences, you're seeing open rates of 74%. And so when you're experimenting with this stuff, make sure that you're watching these open rates, because that's sort of the initial signal if your subject lines are doing well. If your click rate or reply rate are doing well, it could be that your messaging is doing well. But what you want to do is follow these individually to sort of understand which ones are performing better, diagnose why they're doing better, or diagnose why someone's doing worse, and improve the ones that are doing worse over time, so that you can sort of improve these conversions piece by piece, so that you can improve those meeting rates, you can improve closed deal rates as well. And so this is an example, just a bad one. There's not that many people enrolled in this. I think it's 6 total so far. But open rate, obviously there's some opportunity for improvement. And so know that it's not going to be perfect going out, right? Know that when you're starting these cadences, start with a fresh data, okay? So like if you do this cadence and it doesn't work, start with another version so that you have fresh data and understand how to improve versus the, because if you're just keeping it in one and making those changes, it's not going to show you how you're improving over time. It just makes tacks it on and acts like it's the same email sequence. And so be able to sort of compare and contrast between individual cadences as you're making changes. Do cohorts, do a cohort of 50 or 100 or 200 contacts enrolled, whatever gives you statistical significance that you can make a decision that you need to make a change on an email opening, subject line or content or whatever it is. Make sure that you're changing these things so you can go back and compare. Secondly, being able to set a KPI measurement system. So this is in line with what my company does, Growthhound, but I'm going to give you a document that you can do this yourself so that you're not tied to a specific application. So you can access this in the video resources. So there's a few things you want to do when you're monitoring KPIs. Name the KPI, grow my monthly contact list, grow my quarterly booked appointments, grow weekly closed deals. Assign what metric that is. You want to start and end date for each of these things. So the time periods are, typically monthly. You can set quarterly. Basically, how you sort of run what you want to run your company is best. I find that weekly or daily is a little bit too granular. Annually is a little bit too long, but you can set multiple goals for individuals. So that you can sort of come back and say, okay, you did good on this month, you did good, this week, et cetera, et cetera. But I find that monthly is a good, Goldilocks zone of how to sort of set goals. Next, you want to set an owner for, if you're setting individuals at your company, and then what goal type it is so that you can keep track. And lastly, being able to set the goal and the current KPI count, so keeping track of that in your CRM data, in this case is super helpful. And then whether or not they're above, average, sort of on target, or below target for that specific range. And so this gives you sort of a very simplified way to keep track of your goals, understand if people are doing what they need to, right? So like, volume, contact list, are they reaching out to that certain amount of contacts they need to reach out to during the month? That's super controllable, right? That person can reach out to 200, 400, whatever that goal is per month, in order to sort of make sure that the downstream numbers convert better. Some of these other downstream numbers, some of them are a bit out of their control, right? If they're a great salesperson, you're going to see higher numbers, so you're going to be able to sort of compare and contrast different salespeople. So that being said, there's this simplified system that you can absolutely use, and the documentation is there. But my company, Growthhound, is a more sophisticated way to measure your team. So there's all sorts of different ways to integrate data. So we actually integrate with over 2,000 applications. So I keep track of monthly booked appointments, monthly closed deals, my contacts, and I can see the KPI data alongside the goal data, along with a whole host of other features. So it'll actually send you daily updates on data to your inbox and a whole bunch of other stuff. So if you are considering how to sort of set up a high-powered growth management system, they consider Growthhound as an option and an opportunity to improve your growth and sales process for monitoring and accountability across your organization. Okay, thanks.